Title: My wife was unaware that I earned $70,000 a month. She aggressively threw hot water on me and kicked me out of the house, mockingly saying, "Beggars who can't work. You need to get out of this house and never show your face again." I left, but the next day, when she woke up, she was shocked to see that her house. Chapter 1. The boiling point. The kitchen smelled of burnt rice when it happened. I was late coming home after a long day, tired but quiet, expecting nothing more than peace. Instead, my wife's anger greeted me the moment I stepped in. "You're worthless! A beggar who can't even work properly." Before I could even respond, she grabbed a kettle and flung steaming water at me. The searing pain across my arm made me stumble back, stunned, not just by the burn, but by the betrayal. And as I tried to process, she shoved me toward the door, venom dripping from every word. "Get out of this house. Never show your face again." Her sister, lounging on the couch with a smirk, laughed as if it were a show put on for her entertainment. I looked at my wife one last time, her face twisted in arrogance, and I said nothing. No anger, no threats, just silence. Then I walked out. She thought she had banished me. She thought I was a beggar. She had no idea I earned $70,000 a month. And when she woke up the next morning, her house would no longer be hers. Chapter 2. The calm exit, the quiet plan. I walked out of the house that night with nothing but my wallet and phone. No clothes, no suitcase, no anger in my words. My skin still stung from the boiling water, but the deeper wound was the realization of how little she thought of me. To her, I was nothing. She believed I was a man scraping by, begging for scraps, lucky to even live under her roof. She didn't know the truth, that I had kept my earnings, investments, and accounts hidden from her greed. Every month, $70,000 flowed into my accounts from the business I had built quietly over years. But I had never flaunted it, never bragged, never waved it in her face. I lived modestly, partly because I preferred simplicity, partly because I wanted to see if she loved me for me, not for what I had. Now I had my answer. That night, instead of checking into a cheap motel like she probably imagined, I drove downtown and met my lawyer. I placed the house deed on his desk. "It's in my name, isn't it?" I asked. He skimmed the papers, smirk tugging at his lips. "Every brick of it. She has no legal claim. Do you want to move quickly?" I nodded. By morning, while she slept soundly, smug in her victory, papers were being filed. Accounts were being updated. Locks were being scheduled for change. Her castle was slipping from her hands, and she didn't even know it. She thought she had thrown out a beggar, but by the next sunrise, she'd wake up to realize she had thrown out the owner. Chapter 3. The morning shock. The sun hadn't even fully risen when the first cracks appeared in her fantasy. She rolled out of bed lazily, smug in the thought that she had thrown out a beggar. But when she tried to open the front door to collect the newspaper, her key didn't fit. She jiggled it, twisted harder, but it was useless. Confused, she stepped outside through the back door, only to find the front door glinting with a brand new lock. A notice from the locksmith was taped neatly to the frame. "Work completed at owner's request." Her face drained of color. On the dining table, slid neatly under the door overnight by courier, was a thick legal envelope. She ripped it open, expecting some petty warning, but it was far more brutal. Notice of eviction. Effective immediately, she had no legal right to remain on the property. Proof of ownership. Copies of the deed, showing the house was solely mine, inherited and paid for long before she ever walked into my life. Divorce filing. Citing abuse, supported with medical evidence of the burn on my arm, every word carved deeper than any slap or insult she had thrown. She screamed, waking her sister. They both stormed toward the driveway to leave, only to find my car parked calmly across the street. I sat behind the wheel, windows rolled down, watching as realization dawned on them. I didn't shout. I didn't gloat. I simply lifted my phone and snapped a picture. Her clutching the eviction notice, her sister staring in disbelief. Then I drove away. She thought she had thrown out a beggar. But by morning, she wasn't standing in her house anymore. She was standing in mine, and it was only the beginning of her nightmare. Chapter 4. The Public Humiliation. By noon that day, what had started as her private arrogance turned into a spectacle she could never escape. The locksmith's van returned with officers accompanying him to finalize the changeover. My wife and her sister stood outside, shouting, waving the eviction notice in protest. But the officers simply shook their heads. "Ma'am, the deed is in his name. You're trespassing. You need to leave immediately." Neighbors peeked through curtains, some even stepping onto their porches. The same neighbors she had boasted to, bragging about kicking out a useless husband, were now watching her be escorted off the property. The whispers started instantly. Phones lifted to record. By the evening, the story had spread across the block. She tried to save face by storming to her car and announcing she would go shopping. But when her credit card declined at the first store, her facade crumbled. Every account she had access to under my name was already frozen. The life of luxury she took for granted, the spa visits, the shopping trips, the expensive brunches, ended in an instant. She was left standing at the register, humiliated in front of strangers, as the cashier handed her back the useless card. Her sister, who had laughed when I was thrown out, turned on her just as quickly. "You said the house was yours. You said you owned everything. I left my apartment because of you." Their fight, loud and bitter, echoed in the parking lot as people recorded on their phones. The very allies she thought would cheer her on were now tearing her down. She mocked me as a beggar, screamed for me to leave, and thought the house was hers. But by the end of the day, she had no house, no cards, and no allies. And the humiliation she tried to hand me in private had become her humiliation in public. Chapter 5. The Legal Strike. If public humiliation had shaken her, the next wave would crush her completely. While she was busy shouting in the streets and scrambling for cash, my lawyer was quietly filing papers downtown. Assault charges for the boiling water she had thrown, divorce petitions citing abuse and cruelty, financial freezes on every account she had touched. By the time she realized what was happening, the court summons had already been served to her at her mother's house, in front of her entire family. In court, she tried to spin her usual story. "He's broke. He's useless. I supported him for years." But my lawyer calmly laid down bank statements showing my monthly income. $70,000 a month, every month. Investments, savings, properties, all legally documented and untouchable by her lies. The judge's eyebrows rose with every page. Her story of being the sole supporter evaporated instantly. And when photos of the burn marks on my arm were shown, supported by medical records, the courtroom's sympathy swung entirely. The court awarded full ownership of the house to me. She was permanently barred from entering. No alimony due to her proven abuse, restraining conditions tied to the assault charge, limiting her access to me entirely. Financial penalties for damages, paid out of what little savings she still had. Her face collapsed as the gavel fell. The arrogance she had once wrapped around herself had been stripped away, leaving nothing but shame. She had mocked me as a beggar, thrown boiling water on me, and kicked me out. But in court, it wasn't me who was begging. It was her. Chapter 6. The Final Lesson and Aftermath. The courtroom verdict had ended the battle, but the ripples of my wife's choices continued long after. What she thought was victory, throwing me out, mocking me, boasting to her family, became the foundation of her own collapse. Financially, she was cut off completely. No access to my income, no alimony, no property. The luxury she flaunted vanished overnight. Socially, the same friends and relatives who laughed when she called me a beggar now whispered about her downfall. Some even avoided her, ashamed to be associated with the scandal. Personally, her sister, once her ally, blamed her for dragging the family name through humiliation. The bond between them fractured, leaving her isolated. The arrogance she wore so proudly turned to loneliness and regret. For me, peace came not from revenge alone, but from rebuilding. I upgraded the house, restoring it into a home filled with calm instead of chaos. I poured more into my business, and with every deal closed, I reminded myself, silence and patience are stronger than rage. I surrounded myself with people who valued respect, not those who mocked when they thought I had nothing. The $70,000 I earned each month wasn't just income anymore. It became a symbol of what she had underestimated, the power of quiet strength. That night, she screamed, "Beggars who can't work! Get out of this house and never show your face again." But in the end, it wasn't me who begged. It was her, begging for keys to a house she never owned, begging for money she never earned, begging for a dignity she had thrown away with a splash of boiling water. And the greatest revenge? I never raised my voice. I only raised the truth. Epilogue. Years later, since you asked me to continue, let's take this story beyond the courtroom and public humiliation, into the years afterward, when the lessons of betrayal and revenge left their lasting marks. Her final downfall time was cruel to her in ways no courtroom verdict could have been. Financial ruin, without alimony, without a share of my wealth, she bounced from one low-paying job to another. The luxury she once mocked me with became nothing more than a memory. Social exile, the neighbors, friends, and even her own sister never let her forget the spectacle, the eviction, the credit cards declined, the courtroom exposure. Every circle she entered carried whispers. Loneliness. Arrogance had been her shield. But when it cracked, no one remained to stand by her. Even her own family, tired of the shame, distanced themselves. She thought she had won by burning me with water. In reality, she had drowned herself. For me, those years were a season of rebuilding and triumph. Business growth. What was once $70,000 a month multiplied. I expanded, invested, and thrived, no longer weighed down by her entitlement. Personal peace. The house became a symbol of resilience, not of conflict. I redesigned it into a home of light and freedom, each wall carrying the quiet message. I endured, and I rose. Emotional clarity. I learned that silence and patience often cut deeper than rage. She screamed, I whispered, and the world chose the whisper. That night, she screamed, "Beggars who can't work! Get out of this house and never show your face again." But years later, when people passed the house and saw me, successful, calm, surrounded by respect, and saw her, worn down, bitter and forgotten, the truth was undeniable. I had never been the beggar. She had been the one begging, for money, for dignity, for a chance to rewrite the past. And I never gave it to her. Was this revenge perfectly justified? Tell us what you have think about this story in the comments below. Like the story. If you think this story is justified, share it with someone who needs this energy and subscribe to Lauren's Story for more jaw-dropping tales of betrayal and justice. Because here, every lie has its reckoning, and every betrayal finds its shadow. Stay sharp, stay strong, and stay tuned.